Okay, when I say the word psychopath, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably some movie villain, right? Someone lurking in the shadows. But what if I told you they're way more likely to be in a corner office than a dark alley? Today, we're going to dive into the pretty surprising world of psychopathy in the workplace and explore the careers that don't just put up with these traits, they actually reward them. So let's just start with a statistic that is kind of wild. Research has found that about 1 in 5 corporate leaders show clinically significant psychopathic traits. Now get this. That is the exact same ratio you'd find in a prison population. It's a shocking parallel, right? It just forces you to completely rethink where these individuals actually end up thriving. And that's why it's so important to separate the Hollywood myth from the clinical reality. We are not talking about some cartoonish, mustache-twirling villain here. No, we're talking about high-functioning, often really charismatic professionals who are completely integrated into society and are busy climbing the ladder in very public and powerful jobs. So how does this even happen? Well, groundbreaking research by pioneers like Professor Robert Hare and Dr. Paul Babiak shows that certain professional environments basically act like magnets for people with these traits. They offer exactly what these personalities are looking for: status, power, and, the ability to control other people. Okay, before we go any further, let's just be super clear on what we mean by psychopathy. This is a clinical personality disorder, and it's defined by a very specific set of traits. We're talking about a deep, profound lack of empathy and remorse, a habit of pathological lying, and this kind of superficial charm that's all about manipulation. It's actually measured using a professional tool called the Hare Psychopathy Checklist. So, you can basically break the disorder down into 2 main buckets. First, you've got the interpersonal and emotional stuff. That's the inner world, the part that has no empathy or guilt. And second, you've got the behavioral traits. Things like being impulsive, seeking thrills, and just having a total disregard for the rules. A psychopath knows their actions hurt people. The thing is, they just don't care. And here's the crucial part. When you pair those traits with intelligence and discipline, you don't get a movie villain. You get what some researchers call a successful psychopath, someone who is perfectly built to climb that corporate ladder. So where do these people thrive? Well, a psychologist named Dr. Kevin Dutton researched this exact question, and we are about to go through his top 10 countdown of the careers that attract the most psychopaths. Some of these are going to make perfect sense, and others, well, they might just surprise you. All right, coming in hot at number 10, the civil servants. Now, this isn't every single government job, of course, but it's specifically those roles where people have a very particular kind of authority. So why here? Well, because bureaucracy can be the perfect shield. The power is just baked into the rules. It's not about personal charisma. Low transparency can hide some pretty questionable motives, and responsibility is spread so thin that no one person ever really feels the blame. This whole structure lets someone cause real hardship for other people with zero emotional fallout, just by saying, hey, I'm just following policy. Coming in at number 9 is one you probably didn't see coming, the chef. I mean, think about a high-end kitchen. It's a brutal, high-pressure, chaotic environment where mistakes get punished instantly and, aggressively. So who thrives there? The person who doesn't crack, who can bark orders without worrying about anyone's feelings, and who can look at other people as just tools to achieve a goal. In this case, getting the perfect dish out on time. And at number 8, we find one of the most, paradoxical entries on the whole list: clergy or religious leaders. Now, while so many people in these roles are deeply empathetic, the structure itself can be exploited. It offers this unique combo of access to vulnerable people, a ton of power with very little oversight, and the automatic trust of followers. As Dr. Dutton points out, spiritual authority can so easily be twisted into psychological authority, and that makes it a really dangerous playground for anyone who wants to control others. All right, as we move up the list, we get to jobs where these traits aren't just useful, they can be a straight-up recipe for success. Number 7 is probably the least surprising one so far: the politician. And the data here is pretty striking. A 2014 Oxford study found that nearly 1 in every 8 politicians showed clinically significant psychopathic traits. Now, compare that to the 1 to 4% in the general population. It kind of raises that uncomfortable question, right? Does power corrupt, or does it just attract people who are already corrupted? Okay, the pace is picking up now. Hitting number 6, media personalities, a world where being a narcissist can actually be a huge asset. At number 5, we've got surgeons, who absolutely need that cool detachment to make life or death calls. And coming in at number 4 are salespeople, where charm and a real talent for persuasion are pretty much the main tools of the trade. All right, we have arrived at the top 3. These are the professions where, according to all the research, psychopathic traits are most likely to get you to the very top of your field. At number 3, we have media executives and journalists. See, if salespeople manipulate individuals, these jobs can manipulate entire populations. In a world where attention is the new currency, the ability to just engineer outrage without feeling any remorse is an incredibly powerful asset. And coming in at number 2, lawyers. The legal system is basically an arena where twisting the truth and manipulating emotions to win isn't just allowed, it's often rewarded. But hold on. Before we get to the number 1 spot, there's a bonus entry that often ranks incredibly high on these lists, sometimes even above lawyers. Any guesses? It's police officer. The job attracts people who crave structure and control. But for some, that authority can become a socially acceptable way to intimidate and command others. It is a classic example of what experts call the mask of morality, when potentially harmful behavior gets hidden behind a really noble mission. And that brings us to the top of the list, the number 1 career for psychopaths, the CEO. And this brings us full circle, doesn't it? The highest levels of business can feel like a war without bullets, where success comes from outmaneuvering your competition at every turn. The ideal leader is calm under pressure, ruthless in negotiations, and can make those cold, hard decisions, like firing thousands of people without even a second thought. The corporate world often rewards that superficial charm, that manipulation, and a massive ego with incredible power and wealth. So after going through this whole list, what's the big takeaway here? It is absolutely not that everyone in these fields is a psychopath, of course, but it does challenge our fundamental ideas about what success even looks like. There is a quote from Dr. Dutton's work that just perfectly captures the whole thing. We expect harmful people to be obvious, but the reality is so much more complicated. The very same traits we're scared of in one context are actually celebrated and rewarded in another. So the final question I want to leave you with is this. Knowing that the path to the top in so many fields is paved with traits like ruthlessness and a lack of empathy, how does that change the way you see success itself?